I don't know if it's live yet. It always like gives me a little bit of, you know, getting set up. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our third um, webinar for April's Child Abuse Prevention Month. I'm so glad that y'all are here to talk about the grooming cycle or the grooming process for human trafficking. This is our Not My Child, How Good Kids Are Recruited for Human Trafficking in 6 Steps. And I am so grateful. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rachel Chapko, and I am the Deputy Director of Community Outreach. So today I am going to have a slideshow for us. I'm so proud of myself. So let me get that set up for y'all, and then we will just jump right in. Let's see. Here we go. All right, Not My Child, How Good Kids Are Recruited for Human Trafficking in 6 Steps. Here we go. Thanks, Larry, and thanks, Brooks. I'm so excited I can read it too. All right. So there's a grooming process that human traffickers use, and it starts with targeting. This is just an overview. We're going to go through each step and talk about signs and things to look out for with children in your home and children around you. So the first way human traffickers find victims is they target one. Sometimes this is really simple. In the case of Barbara Wilson, our guest on last week's, her human trafficker was her mother. So that is a really easy way to target a victim is if they're in the family, and that happens more often than we like to think about. Another way is if human traffickers are involved in gangs. Gang activity is really organized. So within your kids' schools or churches or wherever kids are going to hang out, they're going to have planted other kids who were either trafficked first or are just involved in the game, as they call it. So these kids are going to be looking for kids that are vulnerable. And also a new way that human traffickers can access new victims is through technology. For the first time ever, they have been able to find victims across the country. They're willing to fly them in or go to them. It doesn't matter, but they'll find them through social media. They'll find them through online gaming, anything where kids are hanging out online. Human traffickers are also, and they're just looking for vulnerable children. So what makes a child vulnerable? This is a big list. And I wanted to include a big list because there are so many ways people and children especially are vulnerable. That could be instability in the home, poverty, minority groups. Parents are going through a divorce. You're moving across the country, whether it be just, you're relocating or you're involved in a military family, whatever it is. Low self-esteem, mental illness, addictions. Members of our LGBTQ community are especially at risk. Domestic violence in the home, parental substance abuse, a parental mental illness, history of sexual abuse in the home. This is a really big one. Undocumented immigrants, homelessness, involvement in the welfare system, foster care, abusive homes, basically anything that creates an opening for a support system, anything that creates a way that a knight in shining armor can come in and save the day kind of deal. And I want to look at this list, and I want you to look at this list too. You may not identify with everything on here. Nobody probably will have everything marked, but there's probably a time in your childhood that you moved, you didn't have friends yet, or your parents went through divorce, or you had an undiagnosed mental illness, or whatever it is. We can look at this list and probably identify a time in our lives where, yep, I was vulnerable then. Yep, I was wishing for a knight in shining armor. Yep, life was hard right then, and if someone came in to help, I'd be so grateful. So that's kind of where what they're looking for is a kid going through a hard time so that they can come in and meet needs that aren't being met yet. So signs to look out for this first step, targeting is, do they have a new friend? Friends are obviously not bad. Friends are what we need, but you want to get to know your children's friends, invite them over. If a kid's hanging out with new people, invite them over or get to know them. You want to know who your kids are hanging out with. And if a kid's friend doesn't want to come up to your house or whatever, you want to why not? Just kind of lean into that. Why don't they want to hang out with us at the house or wherever? Are they hanging out with new people? And are they spending more time on devices? 2020 brought to put everybody's screen time up, parents, children, everybody. So that is something that, like, yeah, screen times are up across the board, but are they spending even more time on screens, or are they, is it interfering with other situations? The next thing is they're going to gain the child's trust. They're going to spend time with the child. They're going to spend time with the child in person. That's what it used to be. Or they could spend time with the child on apps, on Snapchat. Like, I don't want to give a list of apps that are used because the trafficker is going to use any one of them. It's too easy to be like, oh, human traffickers use Snapchat, human traffickers use TikTok, whatever it is, and so let's ban it. Well, that's not really going to help solve the problem. That seems like a really easy fix, but it's not going to solve the problem, because number one, kids are really resourceful. They'll either just get a secret account, or they'll just use a different app where human traffickers are hanging out, because like I said, human traffickers are going to spend time online where children are, whether that even be a homework site or something like that. So online gaming, they're going to spend time building relationship with your child in the games, things like that. And they're going to gain trust through providing things that the child wants, like they're going to flatter them with likes and comments, or really nice things. You remember when you were a kid and you're going through puberty and everything's really awkward, you're going through a lot of changes, you're like, self-esteem's kind of dying out because you feel very like, what is it, like, you're just, I don't know, you don't feel very good about yourself for that little period of time because so many changes are happening, and someone comes in and says, hey baby, you're so beautiful, or I think you're really cool, I don't care what anybody else says about you, I'm here for you, things like that. They're going to gain that child's trust one way or another, and it's really simple to do that. So signs to look out for during the gaining trust step of the grooming process is spending more time with new people, either in person or on devices. It's really hard to identify them in the beginning stages because it looks like normal life. Human traffickers are not going to come up and snatch your kid, although that does happen. But like, according to NCMEC, 1% of missing child cases are random people, strangers, stealing your child away. And then another huge amount of percentage of runaway kids or missing kids are kids that went through this grooming process, if it was a human trafficking situation. So it's really hard to identify them in the early stages, but that's why you kind of always want to be interested in what your kid is doing online and off, and who they're hanging out with. The third step is they're going to fill a need. This is Maslow's, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we're actually going to spend a couple minutes here because I love this triangle, this model, this pyramid. It is a direct correlation to how vulnerable children are. So at the bottom, it has, like, all the needs that people have, starting with the basics at the bottom. If someone at the bottom does not have food, they don't have water, they don't have warmth, they don't have a place to stay, who is that? Who in our population is that? Homeless people, right? They are the most vulnerable population we have. And that's really something we have to pay attention to, and a problem that as society we have to figure out, because housing prices are going up like crazy, and a lot of homeless children are out on the streets. And if they are approached, or their family is approached, their parents are approached by a human trafficker, there's my knight in shining armor. They're going to offer us food. They're going to offer us a place to stay. And it's going to be a slow or quick process to get them into human trafficking. Human traffickers are going to take the time it is needed to groom a child or groom a parent, or to get them into human trafficking. They're like I said, it's not that instant taken kind of situation. They're going to take the time it needs. And so if it takes a couple of weeks, it takes a couple of weeks, it takes a couple of months, it takes a couple of months. Sometimes they're willing to wait a really long time on children or even adults to get them groomed for abuse and human trafficking. So the second tier in this pyramid is security, safety. Do these children feel safe at home? Are they in an abusive home and they're running away? They would rather run away to a trafficker because they feel safer with a trafficker, because they feel like they are choosing the abuse instead of it happening to them. They're going to run from an abusive home into someone's abusive arms because they feel like they made that choice. And also, like, with the security, the foster system kind of falls right here. These children don't have a sense of security if they're moving from place to place. Their home life was neglectful or whatever happened at their home life. That's a big, big event, big trauma that's opening up the way for a support person to come in. The next is like intimate relationships and friends. This isn't as vulnerable as a homeless person, but it's still, anybody can be a human trafficker and anybody can be a human trafficking victim. I think on this pyramid, we throughout our lives kind of fall up and down just depending on what's going on. And I think everybody, society as a whole, kind of went down a level or two during the pandemic because we all felt a little bit insecure about what was the future holding and stuff like that. So, the intimate relationships and friends, if we just had a big move, or if we are isolated because of the pandemic, a lot of kids went to virtual learning, they're disconnected from their friends and they're seeking friendships. And so we all went online for schooling, for work, for everything, for friendships. Kids went online. And so they are now susceptible to the sea of strangers, and there are human traffickers out there in that sea. So the next prestige and feeling of accomplishment, if a kid doesn't feel proud of themselves, but someone's like, you should be proud of yourself. And as we go up the tier, with self-actualization, achieving one's full potential, they might not be as vulnerable. If someone is like, doing great, they might not be as vulnerable, but any sort of life event, a mental illness, a sickness, a big move can push them down and be vulnerable again to human trafficking. So they're going to feel a need, whether that be food and shelter or being a best friend, being someone that can listen to them while their parents are going through a divorce, or they're like, oh, I'm so ugly. Like, just kid things. Kids want friendship. Kids seek like that need to be wanted kind of deal, and to have someone available to listen to them at all times. So signs to look out for with this are new gifts. They're going to give them things that they might not have had, like such as a new phone or a new iPad. If your child comes, or a child that you have in your social circle comes with like brand new phone, who bought that for you? Like, where did that come from? That is a big sign, because that connects the human trafficker to that child. If you ever find a new phone or a second phone, that's a red flag right there. Also, signs to look out for are new friends. That's always going to be it. If there's a new person in your child's life, you want to be involved. You want to know what's going on with that. Bragging about new things or money, if it's like a child, one of your friends' kids or something like that. New living situations. Did the homeless person just all of a sudden find a new place? That's great. What's going on with that situation? Lean into that a little bit more. It's wonderful to think that, yes, they are off the street. That's wonderful. But is that a good situation? Etc. The next step in the grooming process is they're going to isolate. They are going to slowly chisel away the whole support group that is already in place for that child. So their friends that they grew up with, or their friends that are good friends that they are making relationships with and that are healthy for the child, they're going to start chiseling away with that. They're going to start doing that same thing in the family. They're Human traffickers are the best instigators out there. They're going to manipulate you to believe that the people that care about you actually don't. They're going to use any excuse. Like, I'm a parent, you're probably a parent too, or parents that have lost their tempers at times. That is the best tool for a human trafficker. They don't get you like I do. I can take care of you better than your parents can, things like that. And they're just going to slowly chisel away so that they child or the victim becomes more dependent on the human trafficker than anybody else in their life. So signs to look out for in this situation is depression, mental illness. This is where, they're going to start, isolation creates that kind of depression. There's going to be gaps in schedule. Sorry for my phone. They are going to be spending a lot more time with this person, with their secrecy, because like as a parent, and you see your child, you're going to ground them, right? You're going to do all these things. You're going to try to instill your will upon them, and they're going to start lashing out because of what's going on, because of what they're being told by their knight in shining armor, or whoever it is, that support person, aka human trafficker. They're going to spend excessive time on devices. They're going to lash out at their friends. They're going to lash out at their family, kind of create that distance so that they are isolated and dependent on the human trafficker alone, who is meeting all of their needs, who is being everything they need to be for that child to stick around. The next step is they're going to desensitize them and they're going to normalize the abuse that they expect. So this is where they're going to start inviting alcohol. They're going to start introducing the child to drugs. A drug addicted child is so easy to control. A drug addicted person is so easy to control because if you're supplying them with a drug that you normalize, it physically hooks them on it so that you are the sole support person that they need. Because they feel sick otherwise without it and things like that. They're also going to start introducing them to porn. And this is something that society doesn't like to talk about, but it's such a big part of society that we have to start talking about pornography, whether you are a user or not, because it fuels human trafficking. Like, we have such a sex-driven culture, and this has led to the purchasing of people for sex. One of the top 10 search things on major adult websites is teens. So why aren't our children at risk? They are, and it's because we are feeding that cycle of demand. Excuse me. And so they're going to start feeding them pornography so that they are normalizing what they expect from them. They're just going to show them porn with multiple people so that when that situation happens, that's not new. Look, this is what is expected. This is what is normal. Look at, like, we have unlimited content of whatever violent material, whatever it was that they would have originally thought was bad, they don't think is bad anymore because they've been desensitized to believe that this is normal. Because what do we see on the porn sites? So signs to look out for in the desensitizing and abuse stage is drug abuse. Is your child all of a sudden using, like, I don't want to say there's normal drug use, but when you're a kid, sometimes you just, I don't know, like, there's one thing to try and experiment with friends that are safe. There's another thing to have been drugs purposely fed into you for a reason. My allergies are kind of kicking my butt with my asthma. And also look out for alcohol use. Are they getting enough sleep? Is a student in your class just drifting off intensely because of their lack of sleep? Are there bruises? Is there inappropriate conduct? Do they have inappropriate understanding of sex for their age? Things like that. Are they being really secretive? Are they, through the isolation process into this one, they're going to be really secretive about what's going on in their life? Things like that. The last step is they're going to maintain control. This can be as easy as, the drug addiction that we talked about. They could also create threats. They are going to instill fear. If you don't do this, I'm going to do this to your sister. Whatever they learned about them in the beginning process, because they're going to get to know your child on a level that no one else probably will, because it is a big business for them to know their child, to know how to manipulate them. Are they going to blackmail them? In the desensitizing step, they might have recorded them in sexual activity that no one would want shown to their parents, no one wants shown to their friends. They're going to use that as blackmail against them. Well, if you go back to your family, what will they think of you? Stuff like that. And sextortion, which is using images or videos to manipulate them into doing what they need to keep them a product of theirs. So signs to look out for, and this is major changes in demeanor. Talking with Barbara last week, she had an overnight switch when she started being abused. She was that bubbly little child who then turned into the school bully because she didn't understand why other people were so happy and she wasn't. So look out for those major changes in demeanor, those mental illnesses, fearfulness, rage, severe withdrawal, fear of law enforcement, all of it. Because at this point, they are able to traffic them with no problems. Excuse me. So how can I protect my own children? Teach them consent. All right, just give me a second. I'm sorry. I gotta go get a drink of water. Wonderful issues of being live. Thank you guys for your patience. So teach them consent. Teach them what is okay for others to ask of their body. This starts early. Have a child We used to always like, that's your aunt, give her a hug, give her a hug. Like we're saying goodbye, you have to give her a hug. We have to have those as opportunities for children to learn consent. Um, because by giving their body autonomy, they're going to be less likely to have someone force their will with their body over them. That didn't help, sorry. And talk to your kids about human trafficking. Kids have a pretty good understanding about what slavery was back in the day. And they have to understand using that, this is still happening. There just isn't a bill of sale or something as formal as what was used to be legal. This is highly illegal activity now. And it's done by psychological means. So there aren't shackles necessarily, but through this process, they are able to control people and enslave them in modern day slavery. So these are hard conversations none of us really want to have with our kids, but if we don't, we're leaving them susceptible. I don't think any of us chose this reality that we would parent in the digital age. What? We have such a different responsibility than was had in previous generations because of technology, but we have to step up to the plate if we're wanting to keep our kids safe. It could be too easy to be like, not my child. We're fine. We're at the top tier of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're good. But we still have to talk to them about human trafficking because you don't know sometimes what your child is going through if you aren't building a relationship with them. Equip them to identify signs in peers at school. It's one thing to be like, I know that you wouldn't do this, but we got to think about our friends and people at school. Kids love to be a part of something bigger than them. So if they are on the team of fighting human trafficking, the End It movement, whatever it is that you want to call it, help them identify these things. That way, kids that are growing up in disadvantaged homes that are different from your child's, they have an opportunity to get help because they have children looking out for them. The last thing is, and the most important thing is, build a relationship with your kids, a strong one. Every kid is different. What may work for your older kid will not work for your younger kid because we're all unique. And we have to spend this time building strong relationships with your kids, because if we have distance, we may not even notice what's going on in their life if a human trafficker and any of these red signs come up. Or I did before this. Thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate that. I did use my inhaler. I might need to go get tested. It's kind of sad, but we're going to build our strong relationship with our kids. We really do. And and that's going to take time. We have to put the phone down and look at our kids. We should spend time. I love, one of my friends posted on her therapy group that screen time is not alone time. Screen time should not be alone time. We need to be on the screens with our kids. We need to start building that good digital citizenship with our children, things like that. So if you suspect human trafficking, whether within your kids or someone else's kids, call the hotline. There is our national hotline at humantraffickinghotline.org, and there's their number. Program this into your phone. You may never have to use it. Let's hope we don't. But by having it in your phone, you have a constant reminder. Yes, this is a real issue. Yes, I am looking out for this within my children, with other children. And it just starts building, I don't want to say an army, but by building awareness, we are able to prevent human trafficking. And I would so much rather we catch human trafficking, the signs of grooming, in the early stages, and once a child is abused and manipulated, because a lot of victims don't even realize the situation that they're in. I on TikTok post a lot about human trafficking awareness, and so many comments are, this actually happened to me by my abusive ex, and I didn't understand what it was at the time. There are so many people that are going through this and don't even realize the situation that's happening to them until they get out and they start getting reconnected with support groups and things like that. So be a member of the army. I don't want to call it like that, but we are all on a side to prevent human trafficking. That's why you're here. I'm so proud of everybody on this live or watching the replay. And program this into your phone. This may help save a life someday. You never know. So are you ready to help? We would love to have you partner with us. The NCPTF is a group that has trained skills and law enforcement, all that stuff to find and bring back missing children. Any child that went through this process, got in the hands of a human trafficker, they have the skills to bring them back. Why don't you hear about us in the like in the news? We do have news articles that did create credit for us, but we partner with law enforcement and we partner with all these things, and to create that sense of privacy for a family that went through this, there isn't a whole lot of advertisement for what we do. However, the skills that we used to find these missing children, we are able to train law enforcement. Already this year, there have been 2,000 members of law enforcement trained with the techniques that we use. So if you are ready to either sponsor your law enforcement through going through our conferences coming up, we have an annual conference in June that on social media we are continually advertising. Reach out to your law enforcement. Let them know this training is available so that in your communities, they have people that understand this process and understand what to look for with this modern investigation techniques to bring back children that are missing. Because so many missing children or runaway children aren't necessarily runaways. They have went through this whole process of manipulation that a human trafficker will do to create a situation that, hey, Larry, yeah, he'll be speaking at the conference. Everybody give him some likes. um, but they will be able to identify this complex issue so that children are actually brought back home. So if you want to, if you feel compelled in your heart to donate to us, we would love it. We are a volunteer based organization, 100%. And so if you feel compelled to do that, please check out our website, the donate page. And like I said, share with your law enforcement in your communities this conference so that we can get as many people trained to prevent human trafficking as possible. So thank you guys so much for coming this Saturday morning, spending your time with us to learn about human trafficking. Again, we will be back again Saturday to talk more about how we can prevent child abuse. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Let me figure out how to end this.